the daily word, verse by verse. Grab your Bibles and follow along as we study the book of Romans. Keep in mind, I am using the Holman Christian Standard Bible, so if you're using a different translation, the reason is different, but the message is the same. We're going to continue defining our terms. We have defined salvation, the word salvation, sin, sinful, sinner. Sinful is that which comes from sin. So anything that is in rebellion with God is sinful. A sinner is a person who sins, and we sin because of our sin nature. We said that sin produces death. Adam's sin produces death. It produced death in man. Alienation from God. In my illustration here is this is God. Man, sin alienated him from God. All right, I want to go further. And the next word, because then that's man's condition. So why do we need to be saved? We're sinners. We're hopelessly lost in sin. Man cannot, it is impossible for man to save himself. And by the way, remember, even though you're doing good works, a lot of people say, well, if I do good, can I earn my way to heaven? Well, no. The reason why you cannot earn yourself way to heaven, because then you have to ask the question, how do good works give you life? Remember, spiritual death is alienation from God, separation from God. So how does doing good works connect you back to God? See? And that is the issue. All right. So God gave the law, and the reason why that's important to understand is Paul mentions it here because the law has become an integral part of not only Christianity, not only Judaism, but also the world. And this is why. Now you remember verse 19, he says, now we know that whatever the law says speaks to those subject to the law, so that every mouth may be shut and the whole world may become subject to God's judgment. For no one would be justified in his sight by the works of the law. Now what is the law? And then what is this outreach, the mentality of it? God gave Israel the law, which was the commandments and precepts for living right, worshiping Him. The law also was the precepts of right and wrong, you can say. In other words, what is the guiding principle for right and wrong? Well, the law revealed that. Now, what Paul just said was, the works of the law cannot justify you before God. Now, he didn't say the works of the law wasn't good. In other words, thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Very good, especially when you're not killing me or stealing from me or coveting my things. Very good, right? So he says, but the works of the law, cannot justify you. So everyone who thinks that doing good, by the way, the works of the law are the deeds of the law, doing or fulfilling the commandments, doing good things. And by the way, good is determined as to how God said good was. So stealing is wrong. Stealing is not good, but not stealing is good. Okay? So that's what the law is. It tells us, right from wrong. Okay? The law also revealed righteousness. Now, the word righteousness, we're going to see this word, it is saturated throughout the New Testament. So the word righteousness, or the group of words, righteous, right, means to be in right standing with God. So the question is, why is man not in right standing with God? Go back to what we said about sin. When Adam sinned, Adam took us out. It alienated us from God. Thus, we were not right before God because we were sinners. We were slaves to sinners. That fell short of God's expectation, God's requirements, right? And that's important. How do I meet God's requirements? So when we're talking about having a relationship, many of you will, if you belong to clubs, unions, organizations, oftentimes you may hear this, you may see this phrase that you are a member in good standing, meaning that you have met the requirements of that organization and you can enjoy all of the benefits afforded to you by that after being a part of that organization. But then if you don't, for example, one of the biggest things is if you don't pay your dues, that's usually the number one thing, you will be suspended or removed. That means you are not a member in good standing. Therefore, you're not entitled to the benefits of being a part of that institution. Well, righteousness is being in right place with God, in right standing with God. Adam put us out of that righteousness. We are sinners. Okay? And what the law revealed, it was through the commandments. One, the law revealed I cannot even keep the good commandments of God, the requirements of God that would make me right before Him. In other words, God says, here are my requirements to being right before me. My sin natures, no matter how I try, I fail at that. So to be right or righteous is right standing with God. Now, what does it take to be in right standing with God? Sinless. And we're going to get to that in a moment, or later, and define that. So what does it take to be right before God? Sinless, pure. So that means I have to remove the stain of sin. I'd have to remove that. Now, there's another few words: holy, holiness, and then also let me throw in sanctification, sanctified. I'm not going to spend too much time on those words, but it's important to understand that this is what God is. When we're talking about holy, set apart. The word, sanctification, to be sanctified, sanctification, is the act of setting apart. In other words, from God's perspective, especially in the context of a sinful world, the things of God are set apart from the evilness of the world, whether it's worship, lifestyle, your body. So we're set apart. So something that is holy means that it is dedicated, set apart, and dedicated for God. So that means your body, your lifestyle, everything. Okay? The idea of purity in and of itself is not holy. It is holy because, or it is pure because it is holy, or it is set apart because you cannot set apart impure things or sinful things. God doesn't accept that. The word sanctification is that act of setting apart. Okay? But righteousness is important because these are the requirements to be in right standing with God, that you must be holy. You must be and that you must be set apart. So you just can't set yourself apart. Now we're talking about from a spiritual perspective. Now later we'll get into the lifestyle, and that these words holy, holiness, sanctification, it's going to play later in teaching about the lifestyle that we're to live. But we need to understand from a spiritual perspective what it means to be right in God's sight. What are His requirements, right? If I want to be your friend, you may have a requirement, whether it's a low expectation or not. It's still, what does it take to be right to you? What does it take to be right to an organization or right in any place? Well, God has a standard. We fail at that. Again, so this whole issue of salvation is what God has provided for us to make us right, or to make us meet His requirements to stand in right before Him. When you want to be right in God's eyes, okay, but you cannot be right in God's eyes by your own works. And that's important to understand. And we'll see as we unfold this. All right, more words in the next video. I'll see you then.